nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Outstanding job, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And roll call, please.
Good morning. Hey, Director McLaren,
Here.
Director Hernandez,
Here.
Director Calandri,
Here.
Director Martin,
Here.
Director Paris,
Here.
Mr. Thompson,
Present.
Arden Wells,
Here.
Mr. Parton,
Here.
all present.
Very good. And that will bring us to adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy. Second. Second by Brandon. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Public comments for non-agenda items? Going once. Going twice. Gone. Consent agenda. Items A, financial report. B, payment of bills through August. And C, minutes of July meeting. Peter, any discussion on that?
No specific discussion, but we're happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items A, B, and C?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy,
I second.
second by Carolina. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda items A, B, and C, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're now on the advisory committee report. Anybody here from the advisory committee?
We don't have attendance.
I thought
Oh,
Dan
that's right.
Clifford was doing it online. Dan, are you on the phone?
Yeah, because Dennis isn't here today.
Okay.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Is this Dan Clifford?
Yes, Chair Harris, I'm just shutting my door. Sorry about that. My office is broadcasting. So anyhow, the advisory committee met. We had a good and productive meeting. Dennis Lamoureux prepared the summary, which is included in your board packet. I can answer any specific questions that the board may have as far as any of the information set forth in the summary, if there are questions.
Are there any questions? And we do have the minutes from the advisory committee meeting, so. Very good. Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome.
And now we're on item 8, review proposals for administrative services. And that's going to be our administrator, Peter.
All right, thank you. Holly, can you advance the slides for me? There we go. Okay, so just a brief recap. At the July's meeting, we had Provost and Pritchard and Regional Government Services come in to do interviews on their statement of qualifications, and the board unanimously moved to move them forward, and both received requests for proposals. Both responded and provided those proposals, and staff moved those on to the advisory committee and to the board for review. So today we're looking for, we'll end up looking for direction. We're moving one, both, or neither forward for interviews based on these proposals. The next slide, please. So staff reviewed the proposals and they have met the requirements of the proposals that we laid out. And it's staff's opinion that they both seem competent and experienced to perform the Watermaster administrative duties. And let's see, let's look at next slide. Next slide goes over the fees. So we did request that they put in a transition cost. So Provost put that in separately. and RGS included it into their first year costs. And you can see that, and we also asked for a breakdown of 2 years. They've both done that, and they come out with very similar costs. And just for a frame of reference, the proposed Hallmark cost for 2024 was going to be between $230,000 and $287,000. And the board was prepared to offer them a contract in that range going into 2024. So these are within the range of expectation in terms of cost for third-party administrator. And I think, all right, we're happy to answer any questions from staff's perspective on the proposals, or just open it up to board discussion on the proposals themselves.
Discussion? Any discussion from the public? And the action item's gonna be in item 9, correct?
Correct.
So, okay, that brings us to item 9, selection of candidates to be interviewed for the September meeting. Peter?
And so it's staff's recommendation, since both proposed, met the qualification standards, that we move them both forward for interviews at the September meeting. But we're here to take the board's direction.
Very good. Pleasure of the board.
We need to have both of them back, in my opinion.
I agree.
I think we have consensus. Do you need a motion on that?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I motion to interview both.
Second.
Motion made by Angelica, second by Brandon. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, any discussion from the public? Okay, hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to interview both of the candidates, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion's carried unanimously. We're on item 10, consideration possible action to review the May 2024 new production invoices, and that's going to be staff.
That'll be Angel.
Go ahead, Angel, the Angel Show.
Okay, thank you, Rob. As you know, we've been working with the new producers that were invoiced for their full production right when not submitting a production report for 2023. As a result, I have a new list of new producers that I've been working with to collect their production reports. Holly, can you advance the slide, please? One more. Okay, thank you. On your screen, you're going to see the individuals that I have been working with. Most of them do not have wells that are completed at this time, so they have reported 0. However, I have collected all past due production reports for them. Those individuals, their invoice will be changed to 0. And then Carlos and Paola Diaz, they came during public comment. They had the pistachio farm and they're not really doing much out there. They did provide estimated production reports for 2021, 22, and 23. Those estimates were based off of a meter read from 2022 and 2024. So their adjusted invoice amount would be $4,686.30. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are you sensing any resistance from them on paying that?
No.
Okay.
Any discussion? Any action necessary at this time?
Yes, could you please approve the list of new producers on page 91 of the agenda packet, please?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Kathy, second by Carolina. Is there any further discussion? Take a look at the list again on page 91 and 92. Is that correct? Okay, Any further discussion? Any public discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Angel. Now we're on consideration possible action on transfer applications, and I believe that's going to be the Arden show.
Hi, good morning.
Hey, Arden.
Hi, so this application, we're first gonna start with the transfer from AVEC to Los Angeles County Waterworks District 40. And this is a one-time transfer of 2,598.29 acre feet per year, so this is part of a recurring lease obligation between AVEC and District 40. The application summarizes the previous transfers as part of this recurring lease obligation. And also the summary of total water available to each party is included in all of the transfer applications this month. So for this analysis, we first noted that District 40 has never needed to use their carryover or transfer water since the adjudication was implemented, because their total production right, imported water return fees, and unused Federal Reserve right since 2016 have been greater than their production each year. And we reached out to representative from District 40 to talk about the potential use of transfer water. And they said that their wells have been pumping at capacity, including during the drought in 2021. And they're in the process of drilling new wells to be able to produce more. But at this time, they are not able to produce the volume that would require the use of this transfer water. So we determined that we're unable to conduct a material injury analysis for this application, and a new point of extraction application must be approved prior to the new wells or increases in production above the historical volumes. So our recommendation is that this is approved on the condition that District 40 submits a new point of extraction application prior to the use of future wells and doesn't significantly increase their production rate. And this was recommended for approval by the advisory committee with 10 votes yes and none no votes or no recusals.
Arden, I just want to clarify one thing on that. You're not able to because it's not called for right now because you don't have the information, but before that water is pumped or extracted, it will be mandatory for them to get a material injury analysis done before that water is extracted.
That's correct, Director Calandry. We also noted in our application, District 40's wells are located in an area of the Central Antelope sub-area. Some are in areas that are susceptible to subsidence and have experienced historical subsidence, and others are in a cone of depression, and so where there have been lowered groundwater levels. And so it is likely that an analysis for increased annual use on the scale of more than a couple thousand acre feet per year will require the use of the model and an evaluation of cumulative production or projected production in this area.
All right, very good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question for Arden. Arden, this is Angelica. Is there any way that the transfer water can be recovered without the Watermaster being aware of it?
Specifically, if District 40 is producing at a high volume beyond past historical production, is that the question? For example, if District 40 were to produce a very high volume of water and start drawing from their carryover and transfer water, we probably wouldn't know until the end of the year because we're not actively monitoring month by month how much each party is producing. We have the records, but we don't analyze them in real time at this time. but it would be reported. And our understanding is that they do not have the capacity to produce the volume that would lead to the use of their transfer water.
Very good. Thank you, Arden.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve resolution R 2439?
I'll approve that as long as those other conditions are met.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second? Second by Brandon. Is there any discussion, public discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion R 2439, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to R 2440. Arden, go ahead.
Thank you. So this transfer is from AVEC to Little Rock Creek Irrigation District, or LCID. And this is for 100 acre feet of carryover water as a one-time transfer. AVEC is an Exhibit 4 party and LCID is an Exhibit 3 party. And this is part of an agreement between Palmdale Water District, AVEC, and LCID. Last year, LCID permitted AVEC and Palmdale Water District to use their turnout for recharge during a pilot phase of Little Rock Creek Recharge Project. During this time, surplus water was recharged into the basin. In total, 9,515 acre feet of imported water were recharged in this area. The hydrographs included in this application show that water levels in this region did increase quite a bit as response to both this managed recharge as well as likely native recharge from the wet year. The advisory committee wanted us to note that 580 acre feet from Palmdale Water District to LCID was approved earlier this year for use at these wells. And also noted that AVEC's east side bank has a negative balance of negative 2,376.34 acre feet. And that's located in the vicinity of the LCID wells. We do note that the recharge in the Little Rock Creek Recharge Project is very close to the east side water bank and these wells, and there has been an observed increase in water levels this past year. So even though there is a negative balance of the water bank, there are higher water levels in this area. I'll read the comments from the advisory committee. They voted 9 yes, 1 abstain, and 1 no. The no vote was due to concerns about the material injury analysis. In addition to the transfer considered in this application, there's the potential for cumulative material injury when considered in the context of the transfer of the 580 acre feet of carryover water to Little Rock and the negative stored water balance of the near side east side water bank. It would be appropriate for the material injury analysis to recognize these factors considered in the evaluation of potential cumulative material injury for this transfer, perhaps by reference to the prior analysis. So I wanted to share those. We do consider with these other transfers that there would not be a risk of material injury because there have been increases in water levels in this area. And with that, are there any questions?
Arden, this is Angelica. I have a question. So the increase in the water levels, I'm assuming it's due to the hydrology of last year. But what would happen if we go into a drought and the water's still there and they try to recover the water when we are already going through a drought?
So we do see for the monitoring well water levels near Rock Creek that there are fluctuations. If we look at the last few years, we see the water levels go down, a bit by bit during the dry years, and then they go up significantly during the wet years. But what is, I think, illuminating with that is that we don't see a sudden up in the wet year and an immediate down in the dry years, which means that the increases that are observed are not just water representing the creek levels, but are more representative of recharge that's received. And then over the following years, that mound of recharge is then used. So I do expect that in dry years, we continue to see a slight decrease, but the increase that we observe here is greater to or equal than the declines that have been observed in the recent dry years from the last drought.
Well, it's also to be noted that there's been a 50% reduction in a lot of the ag operations in that area as well, or more. In some cases, it's up to 70 or 80%. Just for your knowledge, you know.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Anything from the public? Quick, is there a motion to approve resolution R20?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second? Second by Carolina. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2440, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're on item C, R2441.
Great, so this application is a transfer of 50 acre feet of carryover water, a one-time transfer from Pamela Godey to West Valley County Water District. And I think it's also useful to consider this transfer in the context of the next transfer, which is also a transfer of 50 acre feet from West Valley, from Stephen Denise Godey to West Valley County Water District. And both of these transfers involve the same parcels. So West Valley County Water District has a production right of 40 acre feet per year. And their production rate has decreased from 168 acre feet in 2016 to 105 acre feet in 2023. And that's been mostly a pretty steady decrease in production. We included in the application a chart that shows that decrease compared to the changes in their ramp down over time. And the advisory committee noted that in our application, we identified this as for future replacement water obligations, and that's really not the right phrasing. This is a transfer of carryover water so that they can continue to pump at a higher rate than their production rate and avoid incurring replacement water obligations. So I do just want to recognize that distinction and note that we didn't phrase it the best way in the application. The water levels at nearby water, so there is a monitoring well, a USGS monitoring well on the parcel of West Valley County Water District, though it hasn't been monitored in the last few years. But we do observe from those water levels, which are shown in figure 2, that the water levels increased as the production decreased from West Valley County Water District. So the water levels did show a response to the decrease in production. If we look at monitoring wells about a mile away, we do see that one well, which we had brought to the board's attention a few months ago, that has slowly declining water levels. And there's a well that went dry several years ago, also about a mile away. So we know that this is an area that the board has identified as one of concern. However, because we have that well on the West Valley County Water District parcel, that has been showing the increasing water levels in response to the decreased production by West Valley County Water District. we do not believe that the declines in this area are due to the production by West Valley County Water District. I believe that by distinguishing between the replacement water obligations and this being a transfer, that we have clarified the concerns from the advisory committee, but I'll just read that they wrote in their report that they noted that we said the purpose of this transfer is for use of future replacement water obligations, but where the transfer carryover water would not be pumped, but rather retired as the offset of pumping that exceeds available water rights. And but however, the transfer request form does indicate that the water will be pumped to meet future demands, since the APN number where the transfer will be pumped and used is identified, and the purpose of the transfer is identified as an additional use of water. So based on this, the AC said that the transfer would be better characterized as a transfer that would be produced to meet the future West Valley County Water District demands, which allows them to avoid incurring a future replacement water obligation. So they said in this case, a material injury analysis is needed, and the last paragraph of our letter on these transactions did appear to provide the needed material injury analysis. So for that, the advisory committee voted yes with 11 votes and no votes or abstentions. Are there any questions about this?
Any questions, board? Any questions, public? Okay, I'll take these one at a time. Is there a motion to approve resolution R 2441?
So moved.
Motion made by Brandon,
Second.
second by Kathy. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R 2441, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item D, R 2442. Any questions on that resolution? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve R 2442?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy,
Second.
second by Angelica. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R 2442, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're on item 12, consideration possible action on new production applications. Arden, continue.
Thank you. So the first new production application is for Juan Reyes Castaneda, and seeing half of an acre foot for domestic use. This is for us. He's in the southeast sub area, and this is for 1,600 family home with drought resistant trees and some landscaping. And this potential for material injury for this was found to be negligible by Todd Groundwater. Committee unanimously approved this application, or recommended this application for approval.
Thank you. Any questions for Arden?
Any,
I'm sorry, Arden, you were done, right?
oh, just any questions?
Okay. Thanks. Any questions for Arden? Okay. Any questions from the public? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve resolution R 2443?
So moved.
Motion made by Brendan,
Second.
second by Carolina. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R 2443, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're now on resolution R 2444. Go ahead, Arden.
Thank you. This application is for Luis Suarez, and he's requesting half an acre foot per year for domestic use. This would be for a home that is about 1,250 square feet and has some shade trees as landscaping. We found the potential for material injury to be negligible, and this was unanimously approved by the advisory committee. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Arden from the public? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve resolution R 2444?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Angelica and second by Carolina. Is there any discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R 2444, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're now on resolution R 2445. Arden?
Thank you. So the third and final new production application for this month is for Juan Villarreal. And this is for 1.5 acre foot per year for domestic use. He is planning to build a 1,800 square foot single family home with landscaping of about 50 to 60 trees, a small barn, and also to have a few animals on the property. The potential for material injury was found to be negligible, and this was unanimously approved by the advisory committee. Are there any questions?
No questions? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve resolution R 2445?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy,
Second.
second by Angelica. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R 2445, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Please. We're now on item 13, consideration possible action on non-production well application, and that's going to be Angel. Go ahead, Angel.
Thank you, Rob. This application is for a non-production well, a monitoring well. The applicant is Copart. This application has been to the board several times and has been tabled. Was approved for new production in 2020. And they have an existing county sanitation dish well on their property. They do wish to develop the land and they need to relocate that well. Their plan is to decommission the existing well and relocate the monitoring well 50 feet from that well. The first time it was tabled, it was found that Copart was not compliant with the judgment. Since then, they do have approved meter documentation. They have submitted all production reports and paid for all replacement water assessments. The last thing standing is they need to successfully intervene in the judgment. And at this time, they do have a hearing set for September 24th, I believe. So we are asking that it's approved with that condition that they successfully intervene in the judgment.
They do have a motion to intervene, calendared with the court for September 23.
Oh, 23.
Have
Sorry.
they,
Thank
have they
you.
acquired the necessary permanent water rights or carryover water rights for that facility out there?
They are new production, so they are required to pay for all water that they pump.
But that's replacement water.
Yes, that is correct.
That's not a permanent source of water.
They were approved in 2020 for new production.
How many acre feet?
I want to say it was, I don't know. I can get that for you.
I have a question. So this monitoring well is for water levels, water quality?
You know what? I'm not sure. I just know it's an existing monitoring well.
I can answer.
Thank you, Brendan.
All those monitoring wells went in several years back when there were some discussions of a possible nitrogen plume on the east side of the Inland Valley. That was when it started. Correct, Julie?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Craig, is the issue about intervention requirement, is that in the resolution itself? Or do we
Yes.
just,
Yes, it is. It's a condition of the resolution.
so we don't have to add that,
No,
we just approve the resolution as written?
no. And as I mentioned, it is calendared with the court.
And Rob, just so you know, I will not release the approved application to them until I receive the approved or the that they successfully intervened in the judgment.
Yep. Okay, great. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? If not, is there a motion to approve resolution R 2446?
So moved.
Motion made by Brendan, second by Angelica. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R 2446, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Brings us to item 14, discussion and direction to staff on changes to transfer request form. That's in our packet at 317. And is there, go ahead, Peter.
All right, Holly, can you please advance one? All right. Thank you, Rob. Back, I believe it was in the May meeting, might have been April, there was a request for staff to add some clarity to the transfer request form that would help define what year of carryover water folks were choosing to transfer. In the past, there have been transfers of different years, or specified years of carryover water. And now that, Arden and Todd Groundwater are working on aging all of that carryover water amongst all of the different owners of it, we felt like it was really important that we add clarity to the transfer request form so that when you're transferring it, you're designating either your oldest carryover water or a specific year. We felt like this was a simple way to do it, and but we want to be open to the board if there's any other suggestions for how to handle that.
I understand the legal theory for this and the desire to do it, but there's an operational reality that oftentimes isn't thought about. Are we going to be able to, I'm just worried about tracking this all accurately all the way through on the accounting side, because this is a mess and a half. I think we have 200,000 acre feet of carryover right now with multiple different people, multiple different sub-basins. And how do you guys feel about being able to track this? Are we set up to do this correctly?
That's a good question, and I'll ask Arden about that in just a second. But our intent here is to actually allow for this to help Todd Groundwater track it as they move forward, and we vetted it with Todd Groundwater, and they feel like it's a good add-on to the transfer application. But I'll turn it over to Arden if you want to respond to Director Calandry.
Yes, thank you. So this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit to the Watermaster engineer report, but we are in the process of developing our carryover age tracking tool, which essentially it's through Excel, and we have the carryover available to each party, accrued each year, and it looks at it calculates the amount of carryover water that each party has by the year. And we're in the last steps of kind of testing it for the transfers and developing the capabilities that we can specify the year of carryover for each transfer. So we input the transfers from each party as part of it, and it automatically assumes that the oldest water is being used, but we're developing the capability to specify, if needed, which year. So we are building that capability into our tools, and we're in the testing phase of it, right? But we do expect that the flexibility to specify the years can be worked in and easily implemented.
Any other discussion? Any other questions? Anything from the public? Is there and Craig, we need a motion to approve this transfer request.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the transfer request?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second? Second by Brandon. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve transfer request form, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item 15, election results for the landowner year term and the landowner alternate representative 2-year term. Peter?
Yeah.
That'll be Craig.
Yes, we
Go ahead.
submitted those results to the court. They're at page 321 of your agenda packet. The actual balloting was not included in the board agenda, but I think we're making it available. So there's disclosure of how the votes went. But the results are submitted, and we have a 4-year representative for landowners in Derek, and the 2 primary alternate and secondary alternate of Angelica and Ms. Recca.
Angel, I have a question for you on this. I was, looking over the numbers. It looked like we had less than a 30% voter participation in this. The reason I'm asking you is you have the most interaction with the people on, that, is there anything that you can suggest that we can do to help give better participation in these elections than 30%? Because that's just, it causes a lot of different concerns for me when I look at that with how important of an issue water is, and everybody spent 18 years fighting this battle and have 30% of the overall votes cast. Something's wrong. I don't know what that is, or if you have any suggestions, but that is not good.
Brandon, I don't have any suggestions at this time, but it is something that we can think about.
If you hear of any, I'd sure love to hear them.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Any discussion from the public? Thank you. And we'll move on to the administrator's report, item 16.
All right. Thank you very much, Holly. Can you please advance one slide? All right, so just wanted to update the board on a couple of items that are coming up. And let you know that in August, we did prepare and mail the delinquent invoices for unpaid replacement water assessments and the variable assessments. So that successfully went out. In September, we'll have our RFP interviews. So we may consider potentially having an earlier start time like we did with the statement of qualification interviews. We are going to publish our unpaid delinquent assessment list to be accepted and filed. We'll also present the USGS contract for approval. And we are going to seek some direction on the auditor contract for the Watermaster, because we've run the length of the contract with our current auditor. So while we're satisfied with that, with their performance, we would like the Watermaster's direction on whether to go to an RFP or to retain the current auditor. So that will be coming at our next meeting.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
And maybe one for the next meeting if you don't know. How long have we had the current auditor?
I believe it's 3 years. 3 years.
And who is the auditor again?
What was that?
CJ Brown. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And that concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you, Peter. Now we're on Watermaster Engineers report. Arden?
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And hopefully I can get it right this time. All right. Can y'all see this okay? Are y'all able to see the screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, excellent. Great. So to begin our summary, we have our monthly summary of new production and qualified small pumpers. And the changes for this month, you'll note that the total volume of approved new production is down. This is because Angel's done a great job of talking with new production parties and confirming that the parties that did not drill or for whatever reason have chosen to revoke their application, that everything has been communicated with them and their applications have been formally revoked. So we approved 1/2 acre foot last month, but over the past month have revoked 6 acre feet per year of new production. And there's been no change in small pumpers by year. We received one comment on the model technical documentation. The draft was posted to the website after the last board meeting. And this was a request for clarification over the difference in the net change in groundwater volume from 2016 to 2023 for the model versus the method that's been used in the annual report, because the net change in groundwater volume from the model has been an increase of about 112 acre feet per year when compared to 224 from using the water level surface difference. And this is for three main reasons. The first is just recognizing that these are two methods for trying to understand this volume, and neither of them are going to be completely correct. But we do trust the volume, the net change provided by the model a bit more, because it's not only looking at water levels, but it's also constrained by the inflows and outflows going in and out of the basin. We noted in the annual report that the surface different method overestimates positive changes during wet years and negative changes during dry years. And this method was developed and utilized prior to the buildup of groundwater banking facilities. And it doesn't estimate very well the extent of large mounding from recharge, as well as tons of depression from intense recovery over time. And I'll have the comparison that we shared last month on the next slide of the two different methods. And then finally, this is keeping in mind that the surface different method, the higher number, is including recharge from spring 2024, which was a hydrologically wet year. And so we shared this last month, but this is the comparison of the modeled values each year, the net change, versus the surface different method, which is showing from spring to spring. So once again, this kind of shows both the over-exaggeration of highs and the over-exaggeration of lows using the surface different method in the annual report, which is shown in green. And so that very high change is really because of the overemphasis of the recharge mounds seen in water year 2023. And we note that the previous year, excluding this wet year, the surface different calculation method had a net negative change from 2016 to 2023, while the model showed more subdued numbers, but a net positive change. And this is what we do believe to be more representative of what's occurring. So are there any questions about the model technical documentation?
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? No questions, Arden?
Okay, not hearing any. All are still invited to review the documentation and provide written recommendations. And so our last slide, just a few next steps of, as Watermaster Engineer, what we're up to. We're keeping in mind that we're staying within the budget for this year. So we kind of see two big technical tasks as what we'll be able to accomplish before the end of the year within the budget. The first one is updating the subsidence tool for the model. And so this just means that in scenarios, we'll be able to look at, for example, how an increase in cumulative production in a certain area can affect subsidence rates. And this is a tool that's developed by the USGS, and we're just updating it and making sure that it's well calibrated for the model. And as I mentioned earlier, we're in the process of finalizing our development of a tool that will be able to help us calculate carryover by year for each party. And we hope that, expect that the outputs for that will be that each party is able to see the volume of carryover water they have by year and more effectively plan for when we do reach that 10-year mark. And finally, I shared a few months ago that I was planning to submit an abstract for the Western Groundwater Congress in October. So my abstract was accepted, and I'll send around draft slides of that as a courtesy to keep everyone informed. That's all I've got. Are there any questions?
Pardon, one question on when you're talking about the carryover water accounting and tracking. I also have not heard you say anything about tracking it as it pertains to the origination in what sub-area basin. So I know that one of the things that I would want to see is we have X amount from this year and from this sub-area basin. So something to think about if we can do that.
Yes, so we have been able to do that the past carryover from year to year. That has been looking at the total amount each year that each party has, and it is making some assumptions at the distribution of, it's assuming that recent production is in different sub-areas for parties with multiple wells in different sub-areas is kind of staying standard. We aren't tracking the carryover as far as reduction in production from each individual well, but we do have the capability to look at the total carryover by sub-area for all of the parties. And we are now updating the annual reports to include that information. But it's overall by party, assuming the, for example, the percentage of my production by sub-area is based off of my recent production in each sub-area. So there are some assumptions in it, but we are tracking the carryover by sub-area.
Very good, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Arden. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our general counsel's update.
Yes, we'll have a closed session on all the matters. Nothing in addition to the Copart motion to intervene and the election results. There's no further report. You'll hear it all in closed session.
Okay, great. That brings us to board members' requests for future agenda items. Anything on the board?
I just have to compliment you, Chair Paris, for 53 minutes into the meeting at the end of the agenda.
It's not,
Spoil me.
it's not our record. Well, we have closed session still. Okay, is there a motion to go into closed session? Motion made by Brandon, second by Carolina. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to go into closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, motion's carried unanimously. And let's start closed session at 11 a.m. promptly. Back in open session, are we online? Okay, there's no reportable actions, correct?
Correct.
And we're ready for, oh, I don't do motions to adjourn. We are about to adjourn, 1, 2, 3, adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
16 minutes.